I dived into that world. I dived into jazz music, but jazz music was like when you have a high voice or when you have a very dramatic voice. It's not really appreciated in jazz. Most singers have like mezzo or alto voices. They're very sensual, really nice low voices, and I just don't have it. I don't have it, you know? And I was like, okay, which style of music allows me to have a high, strong, loud voice, which is my voice type, and for which I get appreciation, you know, to have that kind of voice? Well, it's metal, heavy metal. That's it.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Matt here from Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. I hope that you had a killer weekend. I most certainly did. This Vox&Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal are Montreal's premier metal promoter, and if you are ever in Montreal, trust me when I say this, if you are looking for a killer show to go to, Heavy Montreal will have you covered. I am beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I would love for you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that just loves extreme music and loves craft beer, well, you should definitely let them know that the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast exists. You could tell them that there are over 400 episodes where I sit down with some of the world's best metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while enjoying craft beers. If you would encourage one of your metalhead beer-loving friends to become a brand new Vox&Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, today in the podcast, I'm very stoked to be with Andromeda Anarchia of Folterkammer. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox&Hops episode number 452.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm very stoked to be with Andromeda Anarchia of Folterkammer. Andromeda, I'm very stoked to be with you. I was literally hanging out with your guitarist last night, Zachary Ezra, and that episode just came out the week before. This one's coming out. All of that just to say, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you tonight.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited that Zachary encouraged me to have a conversation with you because I knew about the band because I follow Zachary and I'm a big fan of what he does, but I hadn't really done the deep dive until I started setting up for this. So I'm excited. Opera, metal, extreme vocals, all over the place. I've avant-garde stuff. Your Dark Matters EP is super interesting as well. I was listening to that right before we started this. Just I'm excited. But it's Vox&Hops and I'm thirsty. So Vox&Hops, I typically hang out with my metal friends talking about their lives and music while they're sharing craft beers. What are you going to be drinking on your side today, Andromeda?
I'm drinking Apro's sparkling water from Switzerland, where I am right now.
The cleanest, the purest of waters, I'm sure.
From the mountains.
I will be enjoying that. Probably as this episode comes out, I will be in Europe. So hypothetically in Switzerland, which would be an interesting coincidence, but I'm not quite too sure about my scheduling at this point. But I hope that I get to drink some of those and think about you when I do. On my side, I am drinking a coffee stout, which I absolutely love, but I'm getting older.
I don't know this one.
No, this is from Saint-Cambato from here in Quebec. They're from Aylmer, Quebec, just very close to Gatineau, which is across the river, basically, from Ottawa. So on the border of Quebec and Ontario here, and it's Saint-Cambato is one of the best breweries in Quebec. I love them to death. I claimed them the best brewery in Quebec 2 years running, and this is one of my favorite beers from them. They just dropped like a 4-pack of their coffee stouts with like different ways that they did it. One of them was aged in whiskey. One of them had Sumatra coffee, and another one had, I can't remember. And then this is the classic version. And I'm getting older, so I have a hard time with caffeine at night. So I cannot drink.
So it's beer.
I cannot drink coffee stouts at night because I'll stay up. The caffeine really affects me as I've been getting older. So I'm happy that I have this opportunity to share a coffee stout with you in the middle of the afternoon. For me, it's nighttime for you in Switzerland, but that's okay. Let's take me all the way back to your very first beer. Remember the first beer you ever drank in Andromeda?
Oh boy, it was a Belgian beer because I started drinking alcohol very late. Like I was like 34 when I started, when I had my first beer. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a Belgian one. And this one really caught my attention because the flavor was so strong. I don't remember the brand. Maybe it was Delirium or something like for beginners. It had like 9% volume though. Yeah. So I was a bit tipsy because since I never drank. And then since then, I'm totally hooked up on Belgian beer. I just love Chimay Bleu,
Yeah.
Carmelite, and all these things, like the heavy ones. I love them. I don't need a lot, just for the taste. It's so good. If you take too much Belgian beer, you're like, at some point.
You are 100% right, and it has happened to Cryptopsy quite a few times. I've said on the podcast a bunch of times that we tend to take the ferry into the UK right after playing Belgium, and they like to give us those, cases of Belgian beer those days, and we tend to overindulge, and then we get mad at each other at the border crossing because some of us are a tad too sloppy. And then the border guards hypothetically make us miss our ferry, and then we have to rush the next day. These are all things that have happened.
Ooh. Can't wait to tour in Europe with Folterkammer.
Yes.
For that reason.
Take me. I'm curious about the 34 first beer thing. If you want to open up about that, why did it take you that long to have a first beer? Typically, people experiment with alcohol, especially in Europe, at a much younger age. It's a very open culture towards young people trying and having a relationship with alcohol. So why did it take so long for you?
It's actually a bit tragic background. I've been growing up being surrounded by many alcoholics, and some of them died.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, I don't want to go down that road. And I was super scared I could turn out to be the same, like, to get addicted, because I know me, I'm an obsessive person with things. Once I love something, I'm really like, and so I was super cautious. But at some point, I felt like, okay, I can give it a try. I think I can control myself. I'm not 15 or, and officially in Switzerland, you can start with beer at 16 and with stronger alcohol at 18. And I was like, okay, I'm 34 now. I think I can control myself. And I just wanted to try to see, do I like it or not? And I really like the Belgian beer. And so I saw that I can just, drink and I can enjoy it and I don't get drunk. So that's what I can do now. I can really enjoy it. I started to discover other things also, like harder things. And I like them. I love rum, for example. I love rum. And I can have a glass and that, that's it. And I enjoy it. And I'm like, wow, okay, I don't have that addiction thing going on. I can just really enjoy it, but I have a control over that. And that's something that was a great experience for me, to see that I don't have to follow the same path like my relatives, some of them, not all of them, but some of them.
Yes, yeah. It is a genetic thing too, for sure. And good
course.
for you to have that foresight and the maturity at even such a young age to totally step away from something out of the fear of falling down that path that some of your relatives have. And then cool that at 34 you had the maturity once again to know that you could just give it a try and then step away.
Totally. I love to surprise myself, and I love to put a question mark behind everything I consider to be a fact about my choices or my, how I perceive life or my opinions or whatever you want to call that. Sometimes it's good to put a question mark and say, do I still believe in that? Do I really think, or shall I try something new? I love to be surprised, it's the best. That's how Folterkammer came about, because of a total surprise, a couple of accidents and happy meetings, and ta-da!
Great. And then, here you are now on Century Media, about to drop a brand new record, April 19th. The record is called We Better Match. Did I get that anywhere close?
And you don't want to try first?
I did, but I didn't say it right. We Better Match?
Weibermacht.
Weiber, of course. You're dropping Weiber Match April 19th. So that's a nice set.
And can you say the
Weibermacht.
Weibermacht, exactly. It means something like the power of women, but the word Weib in German, it's not a nice way of saying woman. Woman would be Frau, or Frauen, the plural. Yeah. But Weib or Weiber, it's a rude way to call a woman, it's a bit like when a man thinks, or from a longer time, or even now, when he considers her to be a bit ugly or, annoying or whatever they call it, vibe, and I wanted to play with that. There is also art or cultural historical terminology, Weibermacht, and it talks about women being dominant or and taking control and being in charge and having power over very either handsome man or very smart man or very powerful man, them becoming very obedient or submissive to a woman. And it was depicted in many old paintings or folklore stories or whatever, and I loved that topic and I wanted to use it for Folterkammer. So Weibermacht.
That's very
Bitch
interesting.
power.
Oh, yes.
I think bitch power would be the best translation, like
I love that. Well, we'll dig more into that. Let's dig more into that a little bit later, but I'd love to hear about you growing up, the soundtrack of your youth. It's a classic Vox and Hops question. I'd love to hear what your parents or guardians were listening to when you were not in control of the radio. What did your parents or guardians listen to when you were young?
Man, I was really privileged because both of my parents had great taste in music. Like, they were listening to literally everything,
Really?
From classical music, blues, rock, like also progressive rock, and they were listening to reggae music, to everything, and we were allowed to listen to everything. And me growing up in the countryside of Switzerland, in a rather conservative, village back then, I was really privileged to have so many vinyl records at home because my dad was a collector and my mom is very passionate about music too. My mom is a great singer. They were both not professional musicians, but they were passionate about music. Still, my mother still is. My father died in the meantime. But my dad played several instruments, and we had instruments all over the house, and we were allowed to just play around on them. And literally since I was born, or like the moment I started to talk, the voice was always something that caught all my attention, and I played around with it a lot, imitating everything I heard with my voice, singing with my mom all the time. I was even upset when she couldn't take the time to sing with me because she had to take care of my sisters. I was so much into music all the time, and since I was really little, I wanted to be a professional musician, first a guitarist. Then for me, I had this funny, naive kind of image. If you want to be a musician, you have to be able to play all the instruments.
Where did that come from? Who are you idolizing?
When I was listening to, when I was really little, I was listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I was listening to Elton John also. And I saw, he sings and he plays the piano really well, and he writes his own music. I was like, wow, I want to do that too. And I was 5 years old when I started to write my own tunes. I was like, I just really wanted to do that. And I knew, damn it, these guys, they all speak English. And I have to learn English. So I started to try to understand all the lyrics. I was reading all the booklets and the vinyl records, and I tried to figure out which word means what. And that's how I learned English. It was the beginning of everything. I knew my list. I can give it to you. It's a really funny one. I want to be a professional musician. I want to be living or working at least in an English-speaking country. That's why I have to speak English. And I want to get married to Elton John. 2 of them I got. The Elton John thing, I'm still working on it.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Might take a while. Well, I was super little, like kindergarten age. It was just my imagination. But I grew up with parents who were passionate about so many different styles in music, and that really infected me and also my sisters. So my heart and my mind were always open for everything. The older I got, the more I appreciated intensity in music, like really loud and strong music. That's why I love metal so much, for example, or specific classical music also, or very difficult jazz music also. So whenever there is punch or complexity or something theatrical and strong and powerful, that's where you get me. Like, that's what I'm really passionate about. And then I started with piano, but my teacher back then, she was a church organ player. And the first performance I had was at 10, and I was playing on a church organ. I was playing a Bach composition or something. And I remember that forever because I loved to push and pull these stops on the church organ. You can modify the sounds. And I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
wow, that's so cool, you know? And the because singing is most natural after all. And I was like, that's exactly what I want to do with my voice. I want to you look at the voice like if it was a church organ. And I don't want to just do one sound or one style. I just want to push and pull whatever I think fits to the music I want to create. And so that's how I work with the voice right now. I had classical training. I studied classical singing or bel canto for 7 years, then switched to jazz and then into metal. And, so, and now I do exactly that. I push and pull all the stops I want with my voice.
That's fantastic. The when you were so young and you wanted to be a professional musician, what did that mean to you? Like what at 5 years old, what was a professional
At
musician?
3 already. I wanted to be one at 3.
Wow. But what did that mean to you? Like, I'm a professional. It's like your job is music, or was it the touring, the shows? What was it that captivated you so much?
I think just to make sounds, to tell stories with sounds. As a child, I also loved stories. I love to have like audiobooks as a kid, like, the playful ones. And I always try to imitate those voices. I just loved that because as a musician, you're a storyteller. As a singer, even more, since you also transport words. But first and foremost, you're a storyteller and you're creating worlds when you're composing and producing your own music. And you travel, I always loved, I was also passionate about horses, for example. I love this image of being a gypsy woman or a cowgirl kind of person, very independent with my horse and then bringing music to people. That was I didn't want to be a princess or anything. You can ask my mom, she will confirm. I was really like, I would have my horsey and then I will sing everywhere and just, write my music and sing it to people and tell and pick up stories and tell stories. And in fact, that's really, I also had some excursions into other things. But in the end, music always called me. I felt like it's calling me. There is no choice. I need to be a musician. I want to be music. I want to make music. I want to travel. I want to meet people and hear other people's music and enjoy it. And I hope that some people will enjoy my music too. That was everything I always wanted to do ever since I was really little. First in front of my parents and sisters and relatives, on all the other poor ones. You have to listen to all my experiments. And now it's with bands like Folterkammer or with the opera La Suspendida or whatever, so that's all I always wanted to do. That's the most honest thing I can say.
That's fantastic. I always wanted to be a singer as well, but I don't think I understood what, there's always that idea of like making it and the professional musician thing. How has that evolved for you now? Like, obviously you've made it, you are a professional musician. How is that your relationship with how you thought about it as a little girl versus now as a professional musician?
Well, I think what changed is a little bit the naivety about music, like in the meaning of when I was little and I didn't understand what I was listening to. I just enjoyed it, and I had my projections, even about the English language, what I understood of the lyrics and sang. It was like, and it sounded English to me, and I was already super happy about it. And I had my imagination what this could mean, So, and then all of a sudden, the more you grow up and the more you learn about music and about language and whatever, the more you are like you see patterns and you see how things are built. So it takes a lot for me now to be surprised with music. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
And I cannot listen to it like, I always have to ask, how did they do that? Wow, that's amazing. Oh, that's so cool. How did they do that? So I'm always analyzing. I remember once, that was funny. I was trying yoga. It's not for me. I'm not a silent person. I need action. And I remember how she tried, and she was like, oh, you have to listen to like meditation music. She started to play it, and I was like, That's not calming me down at all. And so the music was like computer programmed or whatever cheesy synth sounds, and everything. I was like, I can't. And you know what I mean? You're always listening, you're always analyzing, so it's not relaxing at all. It's like, and when I was a kid, I could just plunge into that ocean of sound without any bias and without any presets in my mind. I was just, and in fact, I think maybe you know that feeling. Sometimes I'm still longing for that. I want this back. It's like the maybe like I don't know, the first thing of everything, the first magic touch. You know what I mean? It's like you always want to go back to that feeling somehow. And with music, I mean, yeah, I still discover great things which take me by surprise and which make me drop my jaw and just really enjoy it. But it's not the same freedom with it anymore as I used to have it as a kid. Everything was new, everything was fantastic, everything was there to be discovered. And now I'm like, I have some things in my background, and it's hard to discover something like really new, or where I'm too stupid maybe to understand how great and complex it is what they are doing. No idea, so yeah, that's the difference. And professional music, I mean, what you also learn is you have routines. I'm also teaching singing lessons, so
Really?
you have like routines, and you see there is still, I still have a romantic relationship with music. It's my secret affair, it's my dungeon, it's my marriage, it's my children, you know what I mean? Like, it's everything to me. And also there is still something fresh and exciting and romantic about it. But there's also the daily business, like the routine, the admin work you have to do, all the duties. Practicing is different. It's more like focused. Everything has to be efficient. So I try to always take a bit the time to have a date with music, like, just to be, and to also, I mean, yeah, I have to clean the house of music, the music I create. I have to my duties and stuff. But I always try to have date night with music too, where I just really enjoy playing around, just to keep that sacred space a little bit. You know what I mean?
I fucking love that. I think it is very important that we get so caught up with the whole business side of it. Let's say the obligation to practice, let's say to go on tour, to keep your voice in shape. Just in general, like it's hard to find time, talking for myself here, to just simply enjoy music. And so good for you to still push yourself for a date night with music. I think that's amazing.
Because we have so much output all the time, when you're a creator, you're always having an output, but we also need inputs to be inspired to create something new.
That's true, yeah.
But where does that come from? When you're always putting out, at some point your batteries will be empty. So where do you fill them up again? So date night.
And you're 100% right about I can't go to a show now anymore and watch a production like I used to, the naivete of your first big show productions. Now I go and I'm like, oh, where's that? Oh, that's hanging there. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's shooting from, and I can't just watch it with young eyes again. I would love to do that. Just to be blown away. We're too calculated now, and we know too much. We've been behind the curtain, and now we know too much.
Exactly. So, and then again, there is this thing with me doing like a question mark, or like, I want to be surprised. So sometimes I now it's a bit harder to do that because there are not so many record stores anymore, but I always love to go and make a blind pick, not having any bias, whatsoever, or tendency. I just make a blind pick. I don't know what I will put, and I will listen to that no matter what. Same with concerts. At some point when I'm like, hey, tonight actually I have some time, I could go see a show. Who's that artist? I don't know him or her. Let's go, and just sometimes when I have a moment to do that, and sometimes you have an inspiration because of that, and it's great. It feels great. Like, it feels like when you start to discover everything. So yeah, sometimes we need to do that just to cherish our sexy time with music.
It's such a fresh look at your relationship with music. I think it's very, very interesting. Krauss, right now we're so deep in the business of it. So it's interesting to still remind ourselves that why are we doing this? It's because we love music. Obviously, we like playing shows.
Yeah, I'm a fan of music first and foremost.
Exactly.
I'm not a musician first. I'm a fan. I'm a obsessed, passionate music lover, you know? That's just it.
I think that's
I have
amazing.
a huge crush on music.
So you start on
all people who make music.
so you wanted to pull the levers with your voice. You developed it over the years. Eventually, you find yourself blending metal and opera voice. I've been saying this for years, and I totally see it that classical music, especially intense classical music, is probably the closest thing to death metal and extreme music. At what point did you start melding the two of them together? What is the history of opera and metal? When I was growing up and stuff, I always imagined having like a huge band, vocalists, Maynard from Tool or something, being in a rock opera. At what point for yourself did opera and metal come together?
Very late, thanks to Zach, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Because, I mean, I had classical singing, I was super young, and I was not really intrigued by it at that point because opera, I was young, foolish, silly, stupid, basically. I was into rock, into jazz, into prog rock, and I felt like, oh, that sounds so, like, oh, that sounds, it sounded to me like hysterical chickens, when I was younger. And I was like, oh, it feels so unnatural to me, but I know I can learn a lot. But, when you are young, your voice, what you can do, is not always given immediately. You have to take your patience to grow the voice. And in opera, that's even more the case. For example, like for dramatic roles. And my voice type is a dramatic coloratura soprano. So it's coloratura soprano, I'm sorry. It's very high, it's very agile, but it's also very loud. And I cannot sing low literature. It will always sound like shit, basically, So, but I was too young and not yet there to really sing the repertoire my voice is actually made for, because you have to grow into that sound. Otherwise, you will damage your voice very early. I had a very good professor who knew that, but the literature I could sing back then, I couldn't identify with these roles, the lighter ones. I was bored. I couldn't identify with these characters. I was never intrigued by, playing the pretty girl or the princess. I wanted to be the bad girl, like those voices. And my voice is made for that too. And so I left the classical world behind me. I told my professor, I don't want to be a traditional opera singer. It has to be something else. Also, I want to write my own music. And also, what I said before, I want to check out different sounds. I don't want to sing bel canto for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I tried to leave that world behind me. I dived into improvised music, experimental music. I was a huge fan of John Zorn. I wanted to do things like John Zorn's Moonchild with Trevor Dunn, Joey Barron, Mike Patton. I was like, wow, these guys are so cool. And and I wanted to do something like this. And I dived into that world. I dived into jazz music, but jazz music was like when you have a high voice or when you have a very dramatic voice, it's not really appreciated in jazz. Most singers have like mezzo or alto voices. They're very sensual, really nice low voices, and I just don't have it. I don't have it, And I was like, okay, which style of music allows me to have a high, strong, loud voice, which is my voice type, and for which I get appreciation, to have that kind of voice? Well, it's metal, heavy metal. That's it, So you have that's. Good singing is the technical things. It's given with metal music. It's tricky. You have to be a good singer to sing that style well. And I was intrigued by that very much so. And so I dived into metal, also progressive things, because that's just what I love. And then I bumped into Zach and Kenny at some point because of same interests and stuff. And then I went to New York. And Zach and I started talking. He showed me around Manhattan and everything, and we talked about music, about bands we loved and singers and stuff. And I told him I'm a huge fan of Nina Hagen and all the theatrical singers. And he said, well, why? Because we just talked about the background like we do now. And he was like, well, you sing classical music? I said, yeah, that's how I started. And then he said, and you do growls? And I said, yeah. And he said, can you do the both? I said, well, never combined it really like seriously, but sure. Oh, can you record for us for Imperial Triumphant via Luxury back then? And I was like, yeah, sure. Just hit me up and I will do it when you need me. Said, done. And it was so much fun. And we were like, man, we have to dedicate a whole band to exactly that kind of collision of worlds. Opera, we both love opera, German opera, and we love metal, black metal. I like those that 90s black metal, you just love it. And also Baroque music. And he said, oh, I have this guy, Darren, we were studying at the same university, and man, he has some nerdy things in his head. Would you like to try out if we could find some melodies and stuff? And I have this guy, Brandon, who plays drums, like really rough. And would you like to try something with us? And I said, sure, let's do it. And he said, oh, can you write in German? I was like, wow, okay. Okay. And so we did the first, what is the Folterkammer album. It was really an experiment to see how far we can go with that. And it turned out to be so much fun. Like, we just loved it. It was like we were in a laboratory and we tried things and we were like, that could actually work, And then it was clear we want to continue, and we had this opportunity with Century Media, and so we produced Weibermacht, which will be released in April. But it was really like combining all the worlds we love, and everybody in the band, and also now we have a bass player too, Laurent, and we all love all kinds of music, classical music as much as jazz, as much as experimental things, and of course metal. Come on, we just love it all, and we try to take this. And the way how I'm a wordy person, I just love literature and stuff, and I love the German language for this. It's a very poetic language, and Zach says it sounds really mean, so it fits well to a black. And so to write in German, it's really funny. And I love humor. I love satire. I love everything that is cynical and sarcastic and theatrical. The more drama, the more I love it for the voice. That's just great. And so I can write my melodies, which I love to sing. All the things I like to do. I write words which are like it's when you sing jazz standards, and you can also write your own music there, but when you sing jazz standards, it's like tall and, that Latin stuff too, tall and tan and young and love. And I was like, nah, I want to sing about Satan, about blood, about whatever. And so, metal it is. I feel very much at home. And it was funny when I did the Dark Matters EP. I wrote that music, I sang it, and the piano player, he was like, man, girl, you should sing metal. You have that voice for that. You should do it. I was like, okay, I love it. So let's go. So in fact, it was Zach who made me combine these things, and also Laurent, like because he's also like this, and they both encouraged me to start singing classic bel canto again. And now that I use it so much, but with words I love, with lyrics and melodies I love. So now I love it more than ever, and now I'm like studying it again. I go back into bel canto so much. I'm studying operas, like what I should have done with more serious passion in my young teenage years. That's what I'm doing right now, and I have so much fun with it because of Folterkammer, because of La Suspendida, the opera, and because of Imperial Triumphant. So that's
awesome.
It took New York.
That's awesome. The patience that it requires for someone with a voice like yours to grow into it is not something that's easy for a young musician to understand. And
also, when you are young, you always want to try everything. You are foolish about, you want to express everything in one song that you can do. It's just stupid. It takes a certain amount of experience and maturity and, maybe relaxed mindset to say, hey, I just do what the song needs, not more than that. And the same with the voice. As you said, it takes patience. You need your time to grow into yourself, kind of. You know what I mean?
When you're young, you don't have that patience.
No.
You just push and push and want
Yeah,
more and
and
more.
it's cool too because you just jump right into it and you just do stuff. And I did, and I'm very happy I did that because I did all the mistakes you can make, and I'm sure I will still do many because I still want to experiment with stuff. But you learn to control some things, and then you get older and you start to create your own voice. In the beginning, you're imitating this, you want to sound like that, and then all of a sudden you turn into yourself, and that's when it starts to become interesting.
I agree. So I can't remember who said it. I think maybe it's Melissa Krauss. That one of the first steps of becoming a good singer is accepting the sound of your voice.
Yeah, you know what? I loved all things like Chaka Khan and Labadoo and everything. I just wanted to be like all of them. But then when I was trying to, to take this aside and just to listen to myself, no bel canto, nothing, just my plain voice. I was like, oh, I sound like my mother, which is not bad. My mom is awesome, but it was a shock. And then I started to hear, differences too, which I was happy about, to be an individual person. I love my mom and everything, but it was like, wow, okay. It's not like, like a fingerprint, we all have different, but of course I'm her daughter. So you hear that, and she has a great voice. So no, I'm grateful, no problem. But it was a shock at first.
Discovering harsh vocals, what did you do? Did you just dive in there? Did you just start pushing your voice harder and harder, pulling your legs?
Yeah, I just did all kinds of screams, inspired by Moonchild and all these things that I was listening to. And I remember how I was listening to Arch Enemy back then with Angela Gossoff. And I was like, wow, that girl's amazing. She has that huge scream. And I want to do that too. So I started very naively. I don't know how many times I heard my voice. I think I did all the mistakes you can do with Krauss. And, there were no teachers back then. So I was like, damn it, how do they do that without losing their voice? There were guys who did that for many years and they never lost their voice. So there must be a way how to do that correctly. And I remember in a train, late night in not Zurich, Basel, actually. There was this guy, with the spikes on his arms, and he was in the train like, and I was like sitting to him because I was, a metal head, yeah, great. And I saw he unpacked the microphone. I was like that naive, annoying girl that talks to you in the train when you just want to be silent, and she comes and you hear her talking a lot and fast. So he was like, and I was like, hey, you're a singer. And he was like, yeah. And I said, do you do metal? Yeah. Black metal? Yeah. And I said, do you do Growls? Yeah. Can you teach me? No. I was like, damn it. No chance. I have no chance. So I couldn't. And he said, you have to teach that to yourself. You have to learn it by yourself, he said. I was like, okay. And then I had a friend from Paris who did metal vocals. And he said, you know how I started? I just barked like a dog. I was like, okay. And he said, just bark like a dog, and then you try to hold that sound, Hey, that's how it all started. And I took it from there, and then I was listening again a lot into what Angela was doing, because I think what she did, it's a very solid foundation for female voices in Growls, because we don't sound the same like guys. Even we use the same techniques. We have higher voices, so the screams sound a little different. And I noticed because I have a very high voice, so my screams always sound like black metal. I can do whatever, it will always sound like black metal. I don't have those lows. And I always prefer to not work with effect pedals.
No.
So I always try to do everything by myself. I want to be able to do everything even without any mic, and I want it to sound great no matter what. In the studio, I can be experimental, do overdubs and stuff, that's for sure. But I want to have a solid sound with nothing, just me in a room, and that's it.
That's all you need, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just like that. And I mean, I also like when people work with effect pedals. I just don't have the brain for it. I'm like, I prefer to do everything acoustically. And since I have a very high voice, so it's also the screams sound like this. But I love it, and it's like it. You have so many more colors in how you express yourself as a singer when you do growls. And now I've learned my way to even combine it and to sing as a soloist in an opera, which also asks me to do the both at the same time. And I can sing the opera, which goes 80, 90 minutes, you know, and I don't lose my voice. I do nothing. So
was that a struggle getting into doing growls and clean vocals at the same time in the same performance?
Not at all. I think that was a very natural thing. In the beginning, I was also cautious about that, but it was actually never a problem.
I think that like once you have like a solid foundation and you're like, you have a technique, there's always that apprehension in our mind of like, oh, this is the tour where I'm going to lose it. And then it never goes away. We just do it.
Yes, once you figured it out, then it's okay. You have to learn where are your limits, what are your abilities, and where can you not do. You know, you have to accept that maybe at this very moment in time, you're not yet capable to do something. You have to accept it. And you have also with growls, it's the same like with bel canto. You have to grow into the sound. You cannot force it. And I had to relax about that. I said, okay, I will let it grow and I will see what happens. And I also learned that depending on what you're doing, maybe, you know, in the studios, I do all the growls I can. But when I have to perform the opera, I just reduced it to what I really need for that role. And I don't do everything because it could make my voice tired at some point. And it's also not necessary for the role. And for Folterkammer, it's another thing again. So for every project, I try to figure out what I can do on stage. And also it's a different thing than like in studio. So you have to learn how to keep your resources like in control, because we want to do this for a longer time. And
correct. It's and that comes with maturity too. It's like, I know that if I'm on tour, I cannot go to a loud bar after a show, and I could go to the bar, but I can't spend the night speaking loud over the music when people are smoking around me, let's say. I've made that mistake in my past, and I've woken up the next day and I've known that I should have just hypothetically taken it easy in the bus and enjoyed just as many beers, but not in the loud environment.
Yeah, for me, I have a similar rule. Like for me, it's after the last concert of the tour. That's when I drink something, or I love cigars, for example, but cigars for sopranos. And so I have like a homeopathic approach to smoking cigars, like 2 or 3 cigars per year. So like, but that's what I enjoy, and I just know, okay, before a recording session or before a tour, I will not do that. So, and also I always want myself to work for something. So like, okay, I did that tour, now I can have my rum, now I can have my cigar, like, you know, that kind of thing. But during the tour or whatever is going on, I'm very strict too. Like to not talk is one of the best singing exercises, just to rest your voice. And whatever you do, just do it. Do whatever is needed, but never more than that, just to save, you know.
Yeah, we're on the bus and they're doing a karaoke party. I'm not singing with them, sadly.
No,
I'm there having fun, but I'm not singing.
Exactly. You start to like hold your horses, you tame them.
I've learned that over the years, so I'm going to keep doing that.
Oh, that's great. And what is like what is like your favorite exercise to access very quickly, you know, before a show or before?
I do. I used to, for years and years, do the Zen of Screaming warm-ups. And then I interviewed Melissa Krauss, and then for some reason, and it has nothing to do with the interview, because it was a great chat, I just stopped doing it. So now all I do is a little bit of throat singing, like a little hum into a throat sing, and then I'm fine.
Especially cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Going into like I jammed this way. I'm pointing here because I jam in my room. This week prepping for the tour that's coming up in 2 weeks, and it always takes me like a song and a half for my voice to fall back into the pocket, but my voice is always fine. Yeah.
Oh, great, cool. Yeah, because I think it's always it's good to have 1 or 2 exercises that just make you open up everything, and also to check in what condition is my voice today, what can I do today, what can I not do today. And sometimes it doesn't take more than that, and you're just totally in it. And in the beginning, I remember, maybe that's also something to answer your question from before, what is the difference with being a professional to before, is like I learned that more, like less is more.
Less is more, 100%.
Yeah,
and I think that vocal warm-ups, the biggest thing about it is the mental preparation. If you do something that puts you into a frame of mind that you're going to warm, and to warm up your throat, obviously there, but it's this ritual. that you go through. And the less is more really comes with maturity, because I used to do it all. I would drink the tea. I would have the honey. I would have the honey lozenges. I would drink. And then you spend your time clearing your throat all day, thinking that you're doing something, but in all reality, you're just making it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the psychological thing that we go through.
Yes, I think that's one thing you start to learn, just to do a quick check. In what condition am I today? And the more experience you have, the easier you can say, and you know how to navigate yourself. I think that's the difference, because when I was young, I just did whatever, and I had regrets after that, like, oh. And now it's more like, okay, Andromeda, depending on in what kind of world I am right now, tame yourself. Keep your horses in charge.
To those your cowboy horses, I like it.
The cowboy horses, still there.
We have mutual friends, more so than just Zach. The Growlers Choir are Vox&Hops alumni. They're from here in Montreal. I love them. I think they're freaking awesome. Super underrated performance group, and they run America's Got Talent. I think that a record label should pick them up. I can see them playing Hellfest, playing Wacken, and having like full fire production. I can already picture this. Now you are going and you're going to perform with them in New York. Let's talk a bit about that.
So there is this band called Kilter with Kenny Grahowski from Imperial Triumphant, with Laurent from Folterkammer, and with Ed Rosenberg from Jersey Band. Honestly, just to say that before that band even existed, I was a fan of all three musicians because of what they are doing
together. Yeah.
And when Laurent asked me, hi, I want to have a New York trio, because Laurent is from Paris. And I was like, yeah, you should totally ask Kenny and Ed. And then he called Kenny, because he knew him already too. And he said, hey, which saxophone player can you recommend? He also said Ed. So that's when Kilter happened. And while time moved on, I had some guest vocals jobs I did for Kilter. And I remember how I saw that Growlers Choir. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I said to Laurent, there should be an opera. I want to write an opera for a choir like this, for voices like this, because even all the growls, that's very serious work with the voice. And I think opera should not be dying. It should just grow into modernity and to new options that we can do with the voice. And I loved what they were doing. Like you, I'm so amazed by them. They're all great vocalists and great artists. And I was like, wow. And he said, he talked with Ed and Kenny. Oh, okay, let's write an opera. And they wrote an opera. And then they were like, okay, we have music happening right now. It's a huge process to write an opera.
I can only imagine the grandeur of it all.
And then they were like, oh, hey, do you have somebody in mind who could write the libretto, like the lyrics for the opera? And I remember that James Jones, a drummer from New York, he saw me sing and he recommended me to a guy called William Berger, who is the host of the Metropolitan Opera. He's an expert on opera. And he is a total metalhead on top of everything.
Love it.
And so he invited me to some events he had, like as a host for, when they were talking about classical music and metal, like the combination of it. And then because of this, and I was like, oh, there's this guy and he's really into this. So you should ask him. And he said yes right away. And so he wrote this libretto like this. We took a story. This opera is based on a true story, which happened in Florida. But we took a new turn on the story. Like we try to make a different approach to this tragedy of this woman called Maria Elena. And so he did that. And then we had to ask the Growlers Choir if they would, and they said yes. And we were like, and then they told me I should sing the solo parts, like Maria Elena. And it took a lot of time really grow into that and to write all the pieces. Then sometimes it completely changed, the compositions changed in the meantime. We had a couple of performances, the premiere now in Paris in November, and now the full-length opera comes to New York with the Growlers Choir. The Growlers Choir that come too. And it's like everything, that's just everything I love about music is in that opera, like jazz, classical music, metal. It's very challenging music, very difficult music, but so much fun, and to work with all of them. And I feel like, being a fan of music, but being a fan of all the musicians I'm sharing the stage with. There's also Seven Sons. That's a classical string quartet plays metal tunes on the string instruments. These guys are just amazing, and they're part of this too. So you have that.
It's just like big, like amalgamy of just all the most amazing metal people.
Look there, that's La Suspendida, the opera, and the album will come out in March too. I think on the 17th of March, the full album will be there, and so we have this. And I mean, as I said, Kenny is there, and with Kenny, it's like a circle of people, and we all, exchange about music, and we try new things together. And there's Imperial, and there's Folterkammer, and there's Titan to Tachyons, and all these. Everybody has his foot in different projects, and we always try to, everybody tries something else, and then we meet again, and it's like this. That's really cool.
It's a very involved project. It seems like you're all over the place and everywhere all at once.
So much. It's really challenging, but in the best way possible, and it's also really cool to have actually that opera La Suspendida, where it's really an opera, that's seriously an opera, but there is metal sounds and a jazz approach to it. But then you have Folterkammer, which, also works with these elements, but in a totally different way. With the opera, I'm like, so I have to think all the time. And with Folterkammer, it's all pure expression. And of course, you think when you write the lyrics and the melodies and the music and stuff, but it's like so much. It's like you can just let the horse run as it wants. In the opera, it's like you always have to see how the horse moves. and with Folterkammer, it's so expressive and so much fun, and everybody in the band is so much fun to work with. Zach is amazing, Laurent is amazing, Darren, Brandon, and we couldn't be more different with our backgrounds musically and also how we grew up and stuff. But man, that's part of the fun, and I think the music represents that always. It's like we have our negotiations of how to make that music happen, what should we emphasize, and everybody has a different thing they want to highlight. And in the end, I think it's the mix that makes it unique, that makes it Folterkammer. It couldn't be like this if it was just me writing the music, or just Zach, or just Laurent, or Darren, or Brandon. It takes us all to make this,
It's very exciting. You have some shows coming up March 22nd to the 30th.
Yes, that East Coast tour, US tour.
Taken on the road. How is that? I know that for Zach and for Imperial, the aesthetic, the visual part of a show is a huge part of things that he thinks about. We talked about a lot of that last night. How is that translating over into Folterkammer?
Zach said, I paraphrase, he said he's just happy that he doesn't for once has to wear a mask. So no masks for Zach with Folterkammer. That I can say. And I mean, Folterkammer, it plays with so many different elements, like this operatic one. So in fact, I'm super free to mash, to make a mix of either like rococo dresses or leather with spike, black metal kind of traditional elements. Or the Weibermacht actually also talks a lot about femdom, BDSM, but when women are dominant, and with that dominatrix inspired aesthetics. So that will be part of the show, definitely. I just love that. But I think for what we will discuss that when we meet again in New York, and how, because yes, you are right, visuals are very important, but for all of us, like it's part of the music. You cannot neglect these things. They kind of go together. But I think Folterkammer, when you compare it to like Imperial Triumphant, I think it's more like the raw thing. Like there is beauty and there is trash. There is, like that, this contrast, this stark contrast of everything. That's Folterkammer. You have that beautiful operatic thing, but it's contrasted with something extremely rebellious, like punk attitude. And I think also the stage shows will be like this. I can singing. I don't like to give myself an easy job. I like to have difficult melodies to sing, so I cannot jump around on stage.
Right.
I have to have a
That comes with
certain.
time too.
So, since Zach doesn't have to wear a mask, I hope he jumps
jump
around on stage a little more. So I leave that to the guys, and I just sing and try to have everything in line. But yeah, it's different. So I cannot stage dive while I sing those crazy melodies. But yeah, it will, I think it's something that we will define once we are about to have the tour happen, how we'll do that. So for now,
so exciting. One last question. It might not apply because you only started drinking at 34. You tend to just have one and stop, but every once in a while it happens to everyone. What is your hangover cure?
I've never been drunk in my life, so I
so
really don't know that
that's
feeling.
The secret.
But when I'm up very late, and sometimes I can have something, maybe that from the description it sounds a bit like a hangover thing. I think what is great is, personally, I love to cook. Cooking always calms me down. It's a very creative thing. It's also, for me, that's meditation, to cook and to bake stuff. And I think when I'm really tired and exhausted, one of the best things is a great soup with a lot of vegetables, and you just do it from scratch all by yourself. I just love that. My father was a chef. And we next to music, we also had food all the time. We always had to help him and to see how he's cooking. So we learned a lot just growing up, seeing how he's cooking, and that's something magical. And just to have those fresh things, from a farmer's market, or the vegetables and stuff. So to me, that's like medicine. My dad always said, the more you invest in good quality food, the less you have to pay to your doctor. And I have this in my mind. Like, whenever I feel sick or not well, I make a tea and I make a soup, or just something with fresh vegetables or fruits or whatever, just something fresh. I think fresh things, that's it. And the soup is always good because it's not heavy in your stomach. So yeah, and drinking a lot of water.
Yes, that's a good.
I'm very boring with these things. In fact,
no, it's like, great. And I totally agree that we all need to drink a lot more water than we think we do.
Yeah.
The soup is delicious. Plus, it feels great on the throat.
Oh man, yes, exactly. But there's soup that can be so, like, how do you say that in English? Like wholesome, or like very nutritious.
Hearty.
And hearty. Yeah, that's a good word. And the flavors can be so amazing. I love to work with spices, everything. Oh, it's like music on your tongue. It's just incredible what you can do with food, and to take the time and to really touch everything. It's a very sensual thing. And I just love that. And I feel like that's something, it connects you with, I think, maybe with life, to do something to nourish your body. It will help you to become healthy again. I very much think that. I believe that. Maybe it's a belief only, but for so far, I always had great experiences with that.
I like it. First time anyone ever says cook a soup when you're hungover.
A good hearty soup.
Andromeda, thank you so much for hanging out with me, talking about your life, talking about music, talking a lot about vocals. I love hanging out with singers, and we hit a whole bunch of amazing things. And I'm very excited to meet you in person. We can go deeper.
Yes, let's do that. Hey, my uncle lives in Montreal, by the way. Really? I have an uncle living there. Yeah, so visit him,
yeah.
I totally have to come back to Montreal. I would love to. I love
I'll
the
take
city.
you around. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to.
There's no horses
Totally.
except for the mounted police, but
Yeah, but the French is really hard to understand. I always have to listen twice. Je parle un petit peu, mais c'est très difficile pour moi. Je suis désolée, c'est terrible.
oh, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Woo.
I said thank you so much. This was great. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye. Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right today. I know that I love and appreciate that. Man, do I ever love hanging out with vocalists. They are easily some of my favorite episodes, favorite conversations to have when I sit down with other vocalists and we just dive deep into the art of singing. I love it so much. I think it's so interesting. The melding of opera and metal, which Folterkammer have accomplished, it's just wild and out there, and it totally makes sense, but nobody has ever really done it quite like this. I highly recommend that you guys go and check out this brand new album that's dropping in April. It's very interesting, and I think you're going to like it. Massive cheers to Andromeda for hanging out with me. I can't wait to meet you in person and to continue this awesome conversation that we had. I'm already very stoked for that moment. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast's mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. And when you do that, you shall receive one email a week that contains all of the details of everything that has happened in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. You will get to see which episodes I dropped recently. You will also get to see which episodes I have coming up. You will get to hear about any projects I have in the works for the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, and you will also be updated on whatever I got going on with Cryptopsy. That's right. Cryptopsy, we just dropped our brand new album back in September of 2023, and we are doing a whole bunch of stuff. We are planning a massive 2024 in the works. Right now, we are in Europe on the Unquestionable Blasphemy Tour alongside Atheist, Almost Dead, 72 Legions, and Monastery. And then after that, we are coming back to the U.S. and some Canada dates alongside The Mighty Death to All. That's right. I'm so stoked that Cryptopsy is opening up that tour, the Scream of Perseverance tour. I am so goddamn stoked about that. And we even have some more things in the works that I'm super stoked about. You will also get to see which albums the Vox and Hops album review crew have reviewed recently, and you will get to see which albums Jerry Monk, Vox and Hops' Metal Architect, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist. There's always a lot of stuff going on in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, and I hate when you miss a single thing, so do me a favor and sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts. I hope you have a killer month of April. That's right, I'm taking a month off. I've been doing this for the past few years where I take time off, and that's very important for my mental health, and I come back even stronger. So I will be returning with brand new episodes on May 7th, but until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.